People don't know their HIV status. Some are even afraid to get tested for fear of what that diagnosis could mean. And joining me now is Brent Coster, Executive Director of Nebraska AIDS Project, and Tommy Young-Dennis, Prevention and Outreach Specialist. But Tommy, you are also someone who knows and understands these fears very well. In a nutshell, what's your story?
I'm HIV positive. I was diagnosed back in 2010, April of 2010, and I went to Nebraska AIDS Project. They connected me to CARE, and they are part of the reason why I'm still here.
What is life like with HIV?
It's not as tough as one would think. It's definitely a manageable chronic illness. So it's nothing like it was back in the early stages of the virus in the early 80s. Now individuals such as myself are taking one pill consistently and maintaining a sustainable level of health.
You know, is there any symptoms that you would have? I mean, if you didn't take the pill a day or the medication, I mean, would you slide? Would you feel it?
I don't imagine that I would feel it. It would probably take some time before I started to get sick, just because I've been really good about taking and my medication and just overall adherence.
I keep doing that. I wouldn't recommend anything. Early on, talking about how I remember this, there was blatant discrimination in the early 80s. But I mean, it was talk about ostracizing people. That whole community was ostracized.
Oh yeah.
What's it like now?
We still have work to do.
Okay.
It's definitely not at the point where it was in the early 80s, but there's still a huge disparity, especially when you are looking at HIV infection rates for African Americans versus people of color. So there's still a huge disparity that needs to be addressed with that demographic.
Yeah, I think hopefully people are more understanding, and we do have a number of statistics actually, Brent, as they go to you, because it says more than 2,000 people are living with HIV in Nebraska. A vast majority are men, 77% basically. More than half are Hispanic and Latino, and Tommy, goes to what you say, so basically almost 80% people of color still claiming lives. Now the Nebraska AIDS Project, Brent, has been around for, what, mid-80s?
Yeah, 1984, yeah.
What do y'all do?
Well, it's really two bags, right? So the main thing that we do on Tommy's end of it is we do a lot of prevention work, a lot of education. We want people to get in, get tested, know their status. So that's very important. On the other side of that, for people who are living with HIV, we have about 500 people that we work with and help them with kind of day-to-day needs and help them kind of manage the virus, help them stay healthy. Most of the folks that we work with are folks who could really use that extra assistance. Generally speaking, when we look at this, like Tommy said, we're talking about folks also who are aligned with poverty and things of that nature. So we very much want to take care of those other needs so they can take care of themselves.
Are you busier than you have been over the years? I mean, some people may think it's not in the headlines every day as it used to be.
Well, if you talk to our case managers, they would not say that. They would say that things are definitely hopping over there.
Right.
You know, we're talking about individuals, we're talking about lives, so it's always a pressing concern. There's always some really important work that's being done over there. Yeah.
And there's actually 4 strategies y'all have towards ending the epidemic: by diagnose, treat, protect, and respond.
Yeah.
Explain those. I mean, it's just what they say, or what?
Yeah, I think that we try to make it that simple because we want people to think very much along those lines. We want people to find out their status. We want to be able to get those people connected with care, get the supports in place, and then get them living healthy lives. That's definitely the name of the game in what we do.
And getting them to know, to get tested, to diagnose.
Yeah.
Tommy, one of the things, I mean, outreach, we know that it's not just a city problem.
Right.
I mean, we want to get out of the city and into the rural areas. Talk about that. How vital is that?
It's extremely vital. And one thing that I can't hit home on, you know, we've heard the news over the last week that we're getting close to a cure, but now's not the time to relax those prevention efforts, because there's still a population out there that doesn't know their status or aren't, engaged in care or routine testing. So it's still vital that we're still reaching those pockets of the community, especially with the African American community, and making sure that individuals are getting tested.
And Brent, why rural? I mean, has that been a neglected area as far as getting tested, or people just don't think about it?
There's so many reasons. We're a statewide agency, so we go from one side of the state to the other.
Right.
So we're pretty well aware of how the care, happens in the different areas. And part of that is you just don't have the providers, you don't have the services in those areas, and they're very much needed. So we do a lot of work out of kind of satellite spots throughout the state. But every time we go into a small community and we're able to talk to the public health professionals there, they always identify that as a need. Absolutely.
And Tommy, when you were diagnosed, when you found out what it was, I understand it was a skin?
Yeah, I had a rash that had just kind of developed slowly over the course of maybe a month and a half or 2 months. So I thought I was just going to go to a dermatologist and get a cream or an ointment and be okay. Turns out the doctor decided to order an HIV test, and that's how I found out.
And I was kind of leading into, but if I had a rash, I may not think anything of it. I may think what you are. So why would I even get tested? When would someone even say mentally and make that conscious decision, I need to get an HIV test?
Well, there's just certain things that factor into the decision to get an HIV test. It's something that we all should be doing, especially if there are certain risk factors, such as having multiple partners, things of that nature. It's just something that, it's recommended at least 3 times a year.
Right. And you have something called Tuesday testing.
Yes.
Explain what that is.
Tuesday night testing. So it's a partnership that I've established with a local church here in Omaha. And the thought behind that is I wanted to conduct testing in a non-traditional setting. I wanted to take the stigma out of having to go to a clinic, the fear of running into someone that and they know that you're there to get an HIV test. So the thought was that if you're doing it at a church, you could be at church for a number of reasons. Right. So the church, which is Kingdom Builders Christian Center, located in North Omaha for 40th and Charles, they've been gracious to open up the doors and allow me to do testing for a couple of hours.
How long have you done that?
For about 1.5 years now.
And what's the reaction been?
It's been very positive. It's been very positive. The numbers ebb and flow. And there's still some work to do on my part, but it's definitely been a vital resource in the community.
And Brent, I guess in an ideal world, you're trying to put yourself out of business.
Yeah.
Real honestly.
Yeah.
And how confident or hopeful are you that Dr. Gendelman's work and his colleagues' work is actually going down that line?
Well, we just spent a good bit of time talking to the doctor, and we're, I think, pretty confident that, for one thing, we know that he's not going to stop until he's got this thing about where as far as it can go. So I believe in his work. I believe in his passion. Our work continues regardless. It's very important that in the day-to-day, we're here supporting the folks that we work with, every single day, and getting folks tested, making sure that we're keeping people safe in this community.
So, there's no really, he was mentioning about a crystal ball earlier. Really, we can't expect this to be gone anytime, and if science moves slowly. So.
Yeah. Well, and because we're on the front lines, that is somewhat irrelevant to us. Until that day that happens, we need to take care of folks. So that's how we're looking at it.
Tom, any last words of advice?
I just encourage everybody to get tested. Point blank period. And like I said, to kind of echo what Brent said, day to day, the agency has to move forward. Prevention is still going to be there, and we're always going to be a resource for the community.
I don't want to tell people getting tested is not a huge onerous thing either. Yeah. No. What do you do?
It's honestly, it's about partnerships within the community. I establish those partnerships, and then as far as like testing is concerned, those results are instant. It's nothing like it used to be back in the day where you have to wait 2-3 weeks for a result. I actually have the ability to give you your result within 1 minute. So it's just finding those new innovative ways to get people engaged.
All right. Tommy, Brent, thanks very much.
Thanks for having us.
Once again, Nebraska AIDS Project does provide free, confidential, or anonymous HIV testing. As Tommy just said, you get the results the same day. That's amazing. NAP can test anyone age 13 and older, also offering counseling services and STI testing. There are various locations across Nebraska, even western Iowa. You can find more information right now. Just go to nap.org. Get some great advice, some great information from you fellows. I appreciate you coming in this morning.
Thank you.
Well, coming up next on Chronicle, the big business of blockbuster breakthroughs, what UNMC's HIV discovery could mean for Omaha for years to come. First, though, a reminder, your comments, they're an important part of the show. If you want to be heard, email them to us, news@ketv.com. I read them. Remember, love hearing from you. We'll be right back. Well, the research isn't done when the paper's published or when the grant is funded or when the platform presentation is complete or the press conference is over. Research is done when a patient's life has been changed by research. So what's next for UNMC's big breakthrough? That's where UNIMED steps in. Founded in 1991, UNIMED is the corporate structure at UNMC and UNO. Its job is to take the new discoveries, turn those protected and patented inventions to be licensed to big companies or even startups.
As you know, the NIH is one of our bigger supporters, and they fund the early stage research. But when we need to translate these results and move them into the clinic, typically that funding falls down, and we need to look to industrial partners to help make sure we can support that research.
In an average year, UNIMED identifies more than 100 new inventions from different scientists at the Med Center alone. And in a time of declining state revenue, a blockbuster discovery like the HIV breakthrough could mean big bucks for the university and become a draw to Omaha for investors and talent in the years to come. Remember, if you missed any part of this show or you want to watch it again, it's online at ketv.com. Just go to our homepage, click on the menu button, and look for Chronicle. I'm Rob McCartney. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here next Sunday morning for KETV News Watch 7's Chronicle.